The 1963 Corvette and its split glass back window have become etched in the fabric of automotive history here in America and around the globe. The all-new C2 Corvette was America's very own supercar, but not many people know that some 8,000 miles away, South Africa was working on its very own domestically built supercar too, one that was also front-engined, made of fiberglass, and still featured that dramatic split rear window. It was called the Flamingo, and while it had the same core DNA as the most iconic Corvette of all time, how come no one outside of South Africa has ever heard of these cars? Well, the answer might surprise you. While the Flamingo itself was a South African car, its story begins not in the bustling streets of Cape Town, but in the damp industrial towns of post-war England. It was 1956 when South African engineer Willie Meissner found himself in the UK, where he encountered something revolutionary: fiberglass. Still a novelty in automotive circles, let alone in South Africa, this lightweight yet strong material sparked an idea. See, Willie and his friend Bob had always dreamed of building their own sports car, but South Africa was no Turin or Maranello. The access to coach builders who could build the body of a sports car were virtually non-existent, and the cost to have it done in Italy would have made the cars too expensive to sell in South Africa. Fiberglass, though, could change all of that. He immediately penned a letter home to his friend and fellow engineer, Bob van Niekerk, and urged him to join him in England to see their future. And Bob didn't hesitate. The pair took up training in local fiberglass workshops, eager to absorb every aspect of knowledge that they could about fiberglass. With every passing day, their dream seemed closer to reality. But as reality started to set in, the pair realized that while they were engineers who could, in theory, build a car, they would only have one shot at this. And being a sports car, they had to build it right. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to sell any. In a seeming stroke of divine intervention, the duo got introduced to and partnered with another South African, a car designer named Verster de Wit, who was then working on the Sunbeam Alpine. de Wit not only offered design guidance to the guys, but he also tutored them in the language of automotive styling, a mentorship that would shape the look and soul of their company, which was then named GSM, short for Glass Sport Motors. After many revisions and scrapped attempts with Verster, GSM finally created a design that they would happily put their names on. Armed with knowledge, this rough design, and a fiberglass body mold they were proud of, the trio took the next bold step. One prototype body was manufactured and sold in England to fund Bob's ticket and the mold's passage back to South Africa. It wasn't much money, but it was enough. Back on home soil in Cape Town, the two engineers set about turning their vision into a functioning automobile. With limited resources but unlimited ambition, they established a modest workshop, which would double as their factory, tucked away from the public eye, yet brimming with potential. That first car would be called the Dart, and in terms of South African motor cars, it might as well have come straight from NASA. Visually, the Dart looked like an amalgamation of British roadsters. It was like a Daimler SP250 with its fins. Its front end looked like that of an MG, and yet technically, the GSM Dart predated all of those other designs. With its unique styling and its lightweight fiberglass construction, this wasn't just an impressive sports car for South Africa, it was a solid and affordable sports car worldwide. It was available in roadster form or with an albeit slightly bulbous-looking hardtop. Underneath, the Dart was made to be affordable, simple, and yet dependable. The Dart utilized a standard body-on-frame design which allowed it to borrow proven components from various other sources to make the car work and cut down on engineering costs. It had transverse leaf springs up front and coil springs at the rear, a setup that delivered lively, if somewhat rudimentary, handling. Power came from a range of small displacement engines, giving customers some choice in performance. Options included the plucky Ford Anglia 100E and 105E engines, Coventry Climax units, and even a select few cars received 1.3-liter Alfa Romeo motors, offering a European flair beneath that streamlined South African bonnet. Power outputs on all these engines ranged from about 50 to 100 horsepower according to the limited information that I could find, which isn't a lot, but when paired with a car whose curb weight was just around 1,100 pounds, these were plenty peppy. In fact, when it came to racing, the GSM Darts were pretty competent little race cars, taking first place in various African endurance races and serious races across Europe. They were even sold in England in kit form as the GSM Delta in small numbers. But it was the car that followed the GSM Dart that you clicked on this video to see, and that was the GSM Flamingo. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's not the most intimidating name for a sports car. And you're right, I can't argue there. But don't let the name fool you. The GSM Flamingo was no delicate creature. It was a proper sporting coupe. It was curvaceous, and it was built to go toe-to-toe with Europe's finest, specifically as a competitor to the Porsche 356 apparently. Introduced in 1962 as a more refined successor to the Dart, while the Dart had been a featherweight open-top roadster, the Flamingo was a fastback GT, designed with sophistication and road manners in mind. Its front fascia was prettier than the Dart's, its side profile was smoother, and it had a roofline that flowed seamlessly into a dramatic split rear window, just like on a 63 Vette. But it wasn't GSM who copied the Corvette though, because this car actually came out a full year before the Corvette did. Beneath that sleek fiberglass shell laid a platform engineered for evolution, originally intended to house a Ford V6 that never materialized in time. The Flamingo instead launched with a 1.7-liter Ford Taunus inline-4 and later opted for the more widely used 1.5-liter Ford Cortina motor. Both power plants made around 70 to 80 horsepower. But this car didn't just get a new motor and a new body. It also featured a significant leap forward in chassis and suspension design for GSM. Gone were the Dart's transverse leaf springs. In their place in the front were independent wishbones with mini-style rubber cones. And at the rear, GSM deployed a clever asymmetric trailing arm setup that minimized wheel spin and improved traction under load compared to the old suspension. It was more than just a prettier Dart. The Flamingo was a different beast altogether. It was heavier, sure, but it was also more civilized, more grown up. The interior had more polish, the ride was better damped, and the styling? Well, just ask Gordon Murray, the future Formula One design legend and the creator of the McLaren F1 and Gordon Murray T50 was so taken with the Flamingo that he personally owned a 1964 model. And that kind of endorsement from a legend doesn't come easy. Yet despite the car's promise and presence, the Flamingo would be GSM's swan song. The company shuttered its doors in 1964, leaving behind its legacy of ambition, innovation, and the two sports cars that dared to dream on African soil. Total production number info is hard to find, but it's estimated that around 120 Flamingos and about 170 or so Darts and Deltas were built throughout the company's short tenure. So next time you see that split window 63 Vette, the one immortalized in posters and Pebble Beach auctions, just remember that half a world away, a small group of South African dreamers had already etched that silhouette into fiberglass. The GSM Flamingo may not have had the muscle, the marketing, or the global stage, but it shared the same audacity to push boundaries, to defy expectations, and to build something uniquely iconic. It was in every sense the South African split-window Corvette that you never heard of. And it was the second sports car ever produced in South Africa. So while the production numbers aren't there and the pop culture references aren't there, in South Africa, this car was important. And that about wraps it up for this video. Thank you all for watching another Rare Cars video. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out. But otherwise, until next time, enthusiasts.